Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gloria and thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today I wanted to talk about the 5 houseplants that I regret killing. So some of these are due to pests, some of these are due to rot, some of these are caused by random things. So I just wanted to touch on them because I know a lot of you guys have made the same mistakes or have gone through these, so we can kind of share these experiences together and, you know, help each other out in the comments down below. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any of my new videos. And yeah, let's just jump right into today's video. Okay, so first off, I'll talk about my most beloved plant that I recently lost, and it's the ANTHURIUM CLARINERVIUM. So this plant, I recently, over this past summer, I had to deal with thrips because there was a thrip infestation that went on in my collection, and I was honestly very devastated because my gloriosum was hit, my Thai constellation was hit, but my ANTHURIUM CLARINERVIUM was probably hit the most, and I only had one leaf grow in my care, which I'll insert a photo. I was pretty sad when the last leaf kind of died off due to the thrips, despite me treating it every 3 days for like 30 to 40 days straight with the Safer's End All insecticide solution. So I was spraying my plant very diligently, and despite doing all of that and isolating it, like spending so much time on this plant, I still in the end lost it. So it was just a stump for a while, and that stump was at least still kind of hard. It wasn't rotted or mushy, so I was still trying to grow that stump into a new leaf. But in the end, that stump decided to rot. Well, first from soil to moss and then moss to leca. During that process, it just, I guess, was too much. It was too much for this plant, and I lost my CLARINERVIUM. This was my first ANTHURIUM that I ever purchased, so I'm really sad, and it was honestly a really beautiful plant. I just can't believe that I don't have it anymore. I'm probably going to be looking for this, and I will try again with the CLARINERVIUM. There's a lot of ANTHURIUMs I do like, but the CLARINERVIUM is just such a basic necessity in my collection. So I'm probably going to buy another one if I see it for a good price, or if there are any trades out there and I'm able to get it into my collection. That is the first plant that I lost, and I'm hoping that I will get another one in the near future. Moving on to plant number 2, this one is a jewel orchid. So out of the 2 kind of special jewel orchids that I got, both of them actually rotted, but this one was unsalvageable, and it was the MACODES Sanderiana. I know the MACODES jewel orchids are very susceptible to root rot, but I figured that because it was pretty well rooted, it was already, I would say, mature, it was like blooming, it had all the kind of good things going for it, I thought it would be okay to transfer from the moss that it was originally growing in to the soil that I made. And I was just under the impression that I was supposed to keep the soil kind of consistently moist, which terrestrial orchids really enjoy. But because there was this one instance where I just kept it a little bit too wet, and just that one time it immediately rotted, and by the time I caught it, because it was kind of near the back of my shelf, by the time I caught it, it was already like way too far gone. The stem was mushy, the roots were mushy, and leaves were just dropping. So I tried to cut it up, but it was just unsalvageable in the end, and I just couldn't save it. Therefore, I just had to throw it out. I was really sad. This was quite an expensive jewel orchid. It was, I think, like 30 to 40 Canadian dollars for a really tiny plant. Jewel orchids are usually pretty small to begin with, and they're a little bit finicky, so I guess I'm not too hard on myself, but I was pretty sad when I lost my MACODES Sanderiana. It was one of the first few plants that I literally rotted to death, and since then I'm a little bit more careful with my jewel orchids. I still have my Ludicea Spider-Man in moss right now because I'm just too scared to transfer it to a soil medium. It's just gonna stay in moss for now, and I will one day move it, but today is not the day. While we're on the kind of same track of root rot, I want to talk about my HOYA CARNOSA Crimson Princess. So this one was definitely one of my plant mistakes as a plant parent this year. Not this year, it was back in 2020, so it was fairly recent. I would say within the past few months, I forgot to water this plant. So I forgot it to the point where the leaves were very wrinkly, very mushy, and just very soft. And I usually look for those signs, but not to this extent, for when I need to water my Hoyas. So when the leaves get a little bit softer, I immediately water them. But I left this one for so long that the roots were just so dehydrated and dried up, and when I did try to water it, I essentially rotted the roots. That is definitely something you guys have to look out for. If you underwater your plants too much and then you try to water it, you can just suffocate the roots very easily that way. It's a little bit better if you're more on top of checking your plants and you don't miss a watering schedule. But for this one, I did miss. It's literally on the brink of death. It's still very wrinkly despite it essentially not having roots, and it's such a big plant. I really enjoy the CARNOSA Crimson Princess because it's supposed to be just like such an easy plant. I do find it's a little bit more tricky compared to the Crimson Queen. So that one is the one with the variegation on the outside. The Crimson Princess is the variegation on the inside. I hope you guys learn from my mistakes and don't do the same thing with your Hoyas or other houseplants that are in your collection. Next up, I want to talk about is my Hoya Sunrise. Honestly, just a very careless mistake that I made, and I essentially over the summer left this plant in my car, and it was like 30-40 degrees. This plant just roasted and just suffocated and melted and rotting the plant completely, and it was just like not savable. It was literally a stick for a while, and at that point I was like, I don't think Hoya leaves will grow out of this stick. So I trashed it, and I didn't have a Hoya Sunrise for a really long time until I got it through a trade with a friend, and I do have a Hoya Sunrise now. But my first Hoya Sunrise, this is how its horrible death happened. I obviously love the plant enough such that I got it again and gave it a second try. If you regret killing a certain plant, you will most likely just get it again unless it's like so unbelievably rare and like not affordable at all. Then obviously you will have some trouble replacing that plant. So I went out and got myself another Hoya Sunrise, and I don't regret it at all. And I'm very kind of careful with my current Hoya Sunrise because I will never leave it in like scorching heat. Last but not least, I want to talk about my Alocasia. So this one was one of my beloved plants. I had a very fast growing and large Alocasia FRYDEK. So this one was also on the brink of death, but before that I gave it away to somebody else, and it's now somebody else's problem. There was a full disclaimer that there were pests on that plant. I'm not sure if there was any more, but the reason that I nearly killed my Alocasia FRYDEK was because it was just infested with both spider mites and thrips. When I initially bought it from the nursery, it didn't kind of appear until a little bit later, and I wasn't sure if I got it from another plant or if it originated from this plant, but this plant got hit pretty hard. All the new leaves kind of just wilted away and they kept yellowing. I passed on this challenge to somebody else. I sold it at such a cheap price. It was very reasonable. There were leaves like literally this big. I think I got rid of it for maybe like $20-30, something like that. And those plants can go for like $100 very easily. So obviously they knew that there was a problem getting this plant, and I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. I do kind of regret it because it was such a pretty plant. I probably want a smaller Alocasia in the future, but I do kind of struggle a little bit with Alocasias, so that's why I don't really want to get too many Alocasias in my collection because they just don't do well in my care. I don't want to get plants where they end up not thriving and they die very easily, so that's why I'm a little hesitant, but I'm hoping that one day I will find another Alocasia FRYDEK. But for now, I'm pretty happy with my current collection. So that pretty much concludes all the plants that I wanted to talk about that I have killed or nearly killed, like literally on the brink of death and no longer in my care. So I would pretty much say it's dead in my eyes. So I hope you guys kind of found today's video helpful. If you guys had something like this happen to your plants, I would love to hear about them. So comment it down below and share your stories. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Give this video a thumbs up if you did, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.